Anyway, so my name's George Osborne. I'm a freelance writer and marketer who owns his own little company called Mobile Mavericks. I work for Pocket Gamer Biz, the business of apps, and a number of other clients on all sorts of app-related content marketing projects. And so we've got a lovely panel here who are going to be joining us to talk about App Store marketing, App Store optimization a little bit as well, might as well go for that. And they're going to be giving us the secrets to success, apparently. So no pressure, guys. You've got a lot of secrets to be giving away. But before we get started, I'm just going to run down the line and get everyone to introduce themselves, and in some cases, reintroduce themselves, and just let us know their app marketing tip for you. So off you go.
All right. I'm Patrick Haig with Tune again, specifically on Mobile Dev HQ. The app marketing tip. I would say don't treat anything as a silver bullet. I think Andy, actually Marie, you touched on this, and take a very holistic approach, including everything as a tool.
Hi everybody, my name is Paulina. I'm founder and CEO of a startup. It's called Captain Cook, and we also have a mobile app, and I must say we are bootstrapping the whole time, so we have tried a bit of things from App Store optimization perspective because we didn't have money for anything else. So my tip would be probably a bit more specific. Just try to take a look what kind of tracking is on the keyword, for example, the name of your main competitor app. If it is great tracking, just put this generic name into your title and it actually works. Yeah.
My name's Tom Leclerc. I'm a freelance ASO consultant and ASO manager at Wooga. And my tip would be unsurprisingly about review mining. If you're thinking about review mining, the easiest place to start is to start creating more keyword options using review mining. And that's very easy.
Cool. I'm Marie Steinthaler. I'm part of a startup called Hopstar, which is a kids' TV and learning app for preschoolers. And I'm happy to say that we actually have an app preview on both our iPad and our iPhone app. It's easy to forget that you kind of need both. And they have separate dimensions. And my tip would be precisely that. I know it can be daunting and you might think you need some big, well-produced promo video, and that's obviously preferable, but you can do it. You can do it scrappy, you can do it on the down low and just get it out there and start testing. So we used a simple screen grabbing tool to video a playthrough and then just put some music on top, and that was that.
Okay, so there are some rough and ready tips for you guys. Now, I've been led to believe that you all have some wonderful questions, so if you could stick your hand up if you've got one of them, and then we'll get a mic directed over to you so that you can ask the question. So come on, everyone. Who's got a question for me? We have a question there. Could we take it down there? Also, could you introduce yourself and who you're with, just to help us out here?
Hi there. My name is Ryan Kelly. I'm with GummyCube. We are an App Store optimization intelligence platform. And Tom, I wanted to ask you about, have you tested that keywords are actually indexed from the reviews by Apple?
No, they're not.
And have you ever used a strategy of keywords in the descriptions so that the users of the app will actually target those keywords in both the App Store and Google Play Store?
Sorry, so you're saying that the App Store description on iOS has a ranking weight? Is that what you mean?
Yes, the keywords hold weight because Apple looks at the relevancy of the keywords in the review, so therefore it bolsters the keywords within the that are being used both in the keyword field and the title.
Yes and no. I think the problem with this is that it's really, really complex. There is obviously a correlation between keywords that are used in reviews and search weight, but there's definitely no direct linking. In the same way that there's definitely no direct link between search weight in app descriptions. That what I would suggest is that actually this is a roundabout way of Apple takes search weight from Google search result pages, right? So via Google, it gets its search weight back, if that makes sense. So there is a correlation, and there's definitely, I think Patrick will support this, there is a correlation between higher keyword density in app descriptions and keyword ranking, but there's no direct influence at all.
Interesting stuff.
Does that answer your question?
I mean, yeah, well, I think it's quite an interesting angle. Patrick, what do you make?
Yeah, so basically on a daily basis, we run this analysis looking at some of these ranking factors correlated to keyword rankings correlated to rankings, and we have seen that a higher percentage of apps that tend to rank in the top 5 for any given keyword have that keyword in their reviews, and that tends to drop down as you get from top 5 to 10, 20, 50, 100, and then overall. So it does look like there is correlation, but we're talking at like even the top 5. I think the number that pops in my head is around 15% of the reviews include that keyword that they are ranking highly for. So while there is this correlation, I don't know that it's a huge factor. And then, to echo what Tom said, we do see a correlation between including keywords in the app description at a pretty high rate. I think it's around 72% of apps that rank in the top 5 for a keyword have that keyword in the description. But historically, we've never really told clients, hey, go ahead and optimize for keyword density or keyword frequency within the description, because most of the feedback we hear is that it doesn't really do a single thing.
Yeah, that's quite similar to the stuff that I've heard about it. But there was something else I was wanting to ask Marie and Polina. It's about app titles. So, I mean, keyword stuffing into app titles is something that's been sort of quite commonplace. But obviously, people are realizing you can't do that all the time. Is there a smart way of coming up with an ASO-friendly app title that you can maybe recommend?
Yeah, I think for many people, it's not clear that actually what you're writing as a title in the App Store, it's not actually your, a startup say like a one-line pitch. So it's not actually description of your app. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's a nice app for something. It should be like really clearly understandable that you're putting there actually the most important keywords. So very often, like Apple says, okay, it should be kind of cut to 75, I think, characters. But if you make it to 100 or a bit longer, it's still okay. Another thing is that when you take a look on this on your iPhone, normally you will not see the whole title. So actually, don't worry about that. Maybe the words are not so much clearly stick together and make sense. The main thing is it should make sense in terms of keywords, because for these keywords you will be also found. So we have done this. Our title is about 100 characters, something like that, including the very important keywords. As I said, also the name of our major competitor. And we know that we are offering like better value than our competitors, so that people, if they're looking for another app and they see our app, they will not be also disappointed if they download it. So it doesn't make sense to optimize your app on some kind of like not related other app, because people will be dissatisfied. So I think
Is that your experience as well, Marie?
Yeah, so we definitely have a long title for our app at Hopster. We do use it to obviously use keywords that we don't have in our keyword field. I don't know, Tom or Patrick, you might have some insight onto whether a while back the common wisdom was that the keywords in your title have slightly more weight than they do in your keyword field. I don't know if that's still the case. I've read reports that has changed. But one thing that we do, so I have a big tracking sheet where I keep track of all the keywords we've used and obviously index them against our position. And when I see a certain keyword performing very well, I will put that into the title in a way that makes sense. That said, the only other point I've got on that is if I wouldn't be afraid of keyword stuffing. It obviously needs to make sense, but that's where the brand thing comes in again, and it feels really weird again saying that as a data-driven marketer. But people do go to the App Store and they either search for a particular purpose they're trying to fulfill, and you obviously need to rank for that, but they will also search for your brand name. So there are some great examples of apps that literally just have their app name as the title, and they still do extremely well because they're just optimizing outside of the App Store for that one keyword.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you're Uber, for example, that works quite well. So have we got another question on the floor somewhere? Yes, I'm going to go here first, and then over that gentleman over there.
Hello, so I'm San. I'm head of marketing at IM, a mobile photography community based in Berlin, and I have worked at Gameloft before for 5 years. And I have a question. So about App Store optimization, we often focus on keywords and text, etc. But what about screenshots? I know a best practice for a long time was to feature a device with a screenshot in it and a marketing message. But recently, I have seen a lot of big players like Instagram or Vine who have come back to a very simple structure, that is to say, full screen screenshot, and that's it. So I don't know if you have any insight on recent best practice about it.
Okay. Anyone want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I was just talking to Patrick about this. I'm really interested in seeing how screenshots will be affected by vertical search. I think vertical search is a much quicker way of searching, and we're going to have to start changing our ideas about that. At Wooga, one of the things that we find time and time again with all of our A/B testing is the more you can make a screenshot look like a 5-year-old's made it, the better it will work. So just the simpler the better, and not even making it look particularly good, just making it so simple seems to be the way forward. I don't particularly like that. I would rather have nice, sexy images related to my brand. But you look at all of the big guys, and that's what they do, and that's where their success comes from, and that's proven in our A/B testing day after day.
Now, I've got to jump across to Marie here, because as you mentioned it, designing screenshots as if they're for a 5-year-old, you literally design screenshots for a 5-year-old. So what's your insight into this?
Yeah, so I think with many things, we actually have quite designed screenshots, and we do test this. That's what has worked for us. I think it depends on your category. One of the things that, if you look at, have you heard of the law of shitty click-throughs? Like there's a really great blog post by a guy called Andrew Chen. If you Google Andrew Chen law of shitty click-throughs, it's the age-old law that over time click-through rates go down, and by actually doing something different from the best practice, you have a higher chance of doing better is what I've seen in our testing. And he actually linked to a post where this was a banner ad test, and they tested a really nicely designed banner ad for Need for Speed against something drawn in Microsoft Paint, like literally a car drawn in Microsoft Paint, and that did much better on click-through rates. Whether that actually converts is another question, but I think for on our end we design them quite nicely. We don't actually one of the things that's tricky for us and that we're trying to figure out at the moment is it actually, do kids search with their parents, or is it just the parent searching? So figuring out who's actually going to be looking at your app in whatever category you're in would inform how you design it, I'd say.
Yeah, and there's something about the way that screenshots are now displayed in iOS 8. So, I mean, we were talking a bit about vertical scrolling. It's now that if you basically have portrait screenshots, then you get to display 2 screenshots. If you have a portrait app preview, you get that and a screenshot as well. Whereas if you have a landscape preview, then you'll end up with just the landscape preview displaying in the search results, at least on iPhone. So, I mean, does that make an impact, do you think, Patrick? I mean, does that change the way that people have to think about designing their screenshots?
Yeah, I do. I've seen a significant trend away from including this device, right? You either have this weird hand, this disembodied hand holding a device, and then you have the interface, or you have just the device, and it's almost selling Apple products.
Yeah.
And it's really now remove the device, go back to the full interface shot, but then use that and leverage that to call out what you're trying to actually solve for the user. A UX-based company that I think does this really well is Zillow, and they do an interface shot and with a big call out on what should draw your eye and what that is. It's very simple, it's just the interface, and I think it does pretty well. But with vertical scrolling, I think that now you do have that opportunity that if you want to make this one massive screenshot, you can just split up an image into 2, and then you have that. I think there's a lot of creative possibilities with vertical scrolling now.
Yeah, definitely. And Polina, I mean, one of the other things that people used to do regularly with screenshots is kind of create this sort of flip book narrative sort of thing, where you'd have 5 screenshots, and in each one you'd have kind of a cumulative narrative that would, build to a call to action or something. Are people still doing that? Are you still doing that? And if so, or if not, why is that the case?
Well, for us, I must say, I actually have never heard of that. The easier, the better. And that's why I'm pretty surprised. We definitely have to try it. We have also pretty nicely designed our screenshots because we thought that the more likely it looks like our app, and we put like lots of value into designing the app, the better. And it's really, in our 5 screenshots, we're explaining how it looks like, how it works, like really like from the first screen to the last one. So, and I don't know, maybe we will be trying something new, because we have recently released also the app for the American store, so we can try iOS 8, this with vertical scrolling, with video preview and so on. But I think we were pretty not so innovative in this kind of stuff, how we design the screenshots. We just wanted to make it simply understandable and beautiful.
Yeah, simplicity seems to be the key to this. But I mean, I think there's a question down here, am I right? Yeah, there we go. There we go, just moving over. There we are.
Yeah, my name is Robert Ferkus. I'm from Enough Software. We are actually the company behind the mobile developers guide that you have on your tables. And by the way, we are looking for sponsorships, new printing sponsors for the next edition, just as a side note. Now to the question, sorry. All these optimizations are great, and it's cool to learn about it, but what do you do when you have a new application and you need to start from the scratch? You don't have any data to optimize upon so far. So how can you drive downloads in the first place?
Yeah, I think I'm going to give this one over to Polina first, because you were mentioning that Captain Cook, you've literally bootstrapped it and got on 120,000 installs for nothing. How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, we have released last year, and since it's not only the app, this is like a startup, what we're doing, it was very important like also to show people that it's actually a community people behind it, and we try to leverage this kind of relationships. So we reached out to different bloggers and told them, hey, take a look on Captain Cook, it's really cool, maybe you like to write about that. We reached out to other food bloggers and said, food bloggers, said, we're going to be featuring you in the app. Do you want to feature us? So, and it worked like really nicely. And this is how we actually got our first downloads. Another thing was, for example, you don't have your own data, but you, for example, at Sensor Tower, you can still take a look on competitors' data, what kind of keywords do they use, how it works, what kind of ranking do they have, and so on. So we have done both of the things, and we were lucky. We were featured also by Apple as App of the Week, so that's why it kind of boomed pretty much.
Yeah, getting that feature always seems to be an important step up. But I was going to go to Tom about this, because you were mentioning outreach to bloggers and outreach to people outside of the App Store, of course, as a way of promoting. And Wooga, of course, probably have extensive PR team. You talk to people like the media and things like that. I mean, this is a question that could potentially land me out of a job. But does the media sort of still have an impact in terms of app downloads, do you think?
Yes, but I think one of the problems is, particularly across, I mean, I'm talking about games here specifically, but I think it applies to a lot of other app verticals. There's too much out there for the media to effectively cover. Like there's not enough motivation to be covering every little app that comes along. They'll only cover it once it reaches a certain critical mass. And once you've reached that point, you kind of, not you don't need the media, but the media then becomes less useful in terms of boosting from nothing. So yes, it's valuable, but can you get effective media for apps nowadays? I would sort of question it, but.
Yeah, well, exactly.
I think it also depends very, very heavily on the app, what you're trying, like what kind of message you're sharing. I totally agree that maybe it will not every time, and maybe you have to reach some kind of stand, but it worked for us really from the very first day.
Yeah, and of course there's different types of publications, so specialist press might not be that effective in getting installs, but something like one of the free newspapers in London, like the Evening Standard, which maybe goes out to hundreds of thousands of people every day, maybe getting your app in that could be quite useful. But I mean, does anyone else have any of these tips for people who are just starting out, trying to get that first app up?
Yeah, so a few things. We talked before about, or Patrick was talking before about the relationship with Apple at Hopster. We have a great relationship with Apple, mainly because we started talking to them very early on, and because we very consciously made some design decisions in the app that we knew Apple would approve of and would like. And we also have high quality content licensed in. That also helps. If you're echoing your point on what app type you are, look at things like beta list, product hunt, try and get your app on there at the right time when you're just starting out. That can give you those first 100, 200, however many downloads, or maybe even thousands if it's a good enough product. And then that will get you the mandate almost to go out and start speaking to publications. There's a cool press hack from where you can use, if you Google Mechanical Turk press hack from Customer Dev Labs, that's a really cool way of sort of scaling the initial launch PR, which doesn't just work for apps, but it works great for apps because it's quite easy to find journalists who write about certain types of apps. Facebook advertising also has worked well for us. I mean, we're a company that targets parents. We don't actually advertise to children, but parents and mums especially love Facebook. And quick tip on Facebook advertising, I'd say it sounds counterintuitive, but if you've got a certain budget to spend, try splitting it into small ad sets. So instead of having one ad set with £500 a day, try splitting it up into 10 with £50 a day. And sounds really counterintuitive because you should be bidding against yourself, but try it out and you might see it actually delivers a much lower cost per install than with a big ad set.
Okay, interesting stuff. And I think we've got time for one last question. So we've got 2 more questions. Wow, fantastic. There we go. I think the gentleman there, just literally right next to you, James, has one.
Hi, my name is Xavier. I'm from Scooby. We are an ebook subscription service. We're ranking quite well for our keywords in the iOS App Store. But my question would be, what if you choose your competitor's brand name as a keyword in your keyword field? Do you get rejected? Do you get punished? Or does it work well?
I believe that's dodgy ground, but I think Tom and Polina are shaking their heads.
Well, the rules quite clearly state, don't do it. But the problem is that it works. It's a bit like white text in web, right? White text is like, what, for 5 years or more, it's been it's been outlawed and banned. Trouble is, it works. So my advice is always don't do it. Don't use any trademarked words.
What if your product kind of relates to your competitor? For example, your competitor's brand name is more general, like for example Kindle. So you have the Kindle Fire. Your app also works on the Kindle Fire. You mentioned this in your description, and then you might be allowed to use that word as a keyword, maybe.
Well, no. Just don't. I mean, the only experience I've had with it was that kind of generic high-level brand, and what it does is it means a week of review time, because they'll just cancel your review, and you just have to take that keyword out and submit again. I don't think it has it's not a particular issue. It's not going to get you blackmarked if you do it once, but I would always say avoid it, but then the little devil would say, go on then.
Exactly. It's a bit like the pirate code from Pirates of the Caribbean, in which that's basically my thing. But in case of using sort of the keywords, if you are a third party working with a license and you use their keywords, so like Disney, for example, then you can basically get them to vouch for you to say that you are actually doing it. Because I worked on a project where we worked with Disney, and they basically said, that's all right, that's kosher. So one more question? Yeah, one more question. Go on then. Yes, the lady over there.
This is for Patrick, actually. Clearly, the consensus is that app preview videos are very effective. But you were talking from an iOS perspective. We're developing for Android. In terms of us being a startup that's bootstrapping, that's quite a large chunk of our marketing budget. How important would you say that it is? And do you have any metrics to kind of back up how effective it is to have an app preview video?
Within Google Play?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't have any specific metrics to say that, apps that have a YouTube-hosted Google Play video tend to convert at this rate. It is a best practice that I recommend to every single client, is that if you have an Android app, you get a video up and out there. It is hosted on YouTube, which has its own search algorithm. It has its own signals that are taken into account. One I don't think with too much of a stretch of the imagination could assume that Google would be also taking one of those signals into account, like views and engagement with the video. But primarily, I think it's an important thing to do for conversion, and I think you can probably do it on a shoestring budget, of course, weighing on quality.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as well, I mean, is it fair to say, I mean, my general experience when people have told me about featuring on stores is that they want you to have everything within there. So they want you on Google Play to have the feature graphics, the promo graphics, the YouTube trailer. I mean, is that fair? I mean, is that part of the featuring process to make sure you get everything crammed in like that?
So we're on iOS only. I think on the App Store. So we've been featured quite a few times. We're actually at the moment we're featured in the UK Kids Store specifically. It definitely makes a difference. And like I said before, I mean, we made our preview videos in-house within 2 days, and they're not terrible. So yeah. Obviously, I'm aspiring to something much nicer and more produced, but it does the job, and it shows what the app does, and it displays the nice IP we have in there. For our App Store featuring, I think that the relationship is also, you can have everything crammed in. If you don't have a relationship, it's going to be harder.
Yeah, and I've been making video a bit recently, and I think I've managed to get a reasonable setup for about 250 quid, and I think it's like, you put that money in, you can make a video fairly easily, you buy the license for a song, and off you go, that's it. So I think that's pretty much it for now. We're going to go to a big coffee break in a moment, so that's fantastic news. But could everyone give a big round of applause to our panelists for